Martin Luther King Jr. because we remember a man who had a dream, because that's what they want to reduce him to, just a dream. All of us have dreams. When you go to bed tonight, depending on whether you what you enjoy at the beverage of the day, you're going to have a dream. Sometimes our dreams will even turn into a what? Nightmare. You'll wake up and say, I know I was not at that place. I know I wasn't doing that particular thing. But I want to talk about Dr. King's life and then what his life informs us about our own life. Dr. King understood, first of all, sacrifice. If we're going to be great, if we're going to build great communities, if we're going to return our neighborhoods to greatness, if we're going to sustain them, if we're going to nourish them, if we're going to serve the community, it requires a lot of sacrifice. The one thing we know that you understand in the NPU, that you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice time. Babies at home needing help with homework right now, but you're what? You're here. Husband is at home, wife is at home expecting the dinner, but you're here. It requires sacrifice. It requires time. Dr. King couched it in a language. Say, if you want to be recognized, fine. If you want to be lauded, then fine. But if you want to be great, then what you've got to do is be a servant. And he spoke about the quality of servanthood. And that's what we got to remember, that we've been called not to just be the leader. We've been called to be the servant. And so when you serve your people, don't expect to get patted on the back. Come on now. I learned a long time ago, some of the people that you will help will never even say thank you. Some of the people that you help through their situation won't even acknowledge the fact that you helped them. But I'm here to let you know you didn't go do it for them anyway. That if you're doing it to be seen of men, you're doing it for the wrong reason. You're doing it because that's what God called us to be. He called us to be servants of the people. And the greatest service is the one who will be here after everybody is gone, after everybody has eaten, everybody drank and sang and been merry. They're here cleaning up. I tell the brothers who are in an organization that I'm a part of, you can't beat me serving. In fact, I dare you to try. You've got to sacrifice and be willing to serve. Here we talk about Dr. King. Ain't none of you all under the threat of death every day. If you are, you're in the wrong vocation. You need to change your job. But every day that this man got up, calls to his phone, said, this day you'll die. None of us under that threat, but we say we like Dr. King. We do love him because he's dead. He's not here to put any pressure on us to do anything. How many of you can walk that walk? We just need for you to serve and sacrifice. And sometimes with that comes suffering. Sometimes you're going to quit your organization. Nicky Giovanni said it best, you can quit the struggle, but the struggle will never quit. You said, well, them Negroes don't really appreciate me. They talked about me after the meeting. They talked about me before the meeting. I'm not going back up there. I'm not going to another NPU meeting. They planning a coup. They're going to vote against me. They're going to kick me out. But serve anyway. Serve anyway. Because it was never about them anyway. It was never about them anyway. And so when you understand that unmerited suffering is redemptive, and that you ain't going to always have folks who are going to be willing to help you. There's some who live right on your street, won't even pick up the trash in front of your front door, right? There's some who live on your street who put the trash by your front door. Pick it up anyway. Knowing that at the end of the day, it's really about your property value anyway. It ain't about theirs. It's really about you and what you're willing to give and what you're willing to serve. How you're willing to serve. Let me say a couple other things and I'll move out your way, because I don't know who ordered this program that allowed me to speak before y'all ate. Usually I speak after you eat, because after you eat, you're ready to go. But I'm going to take just a couple more moments of your time. Dr. King's life was about service. Somebody talked about institutional knowledge and history. This neighborhood where I grew up and where I live, see, you don't have to leave your community. Some of you, as I said, just got here a year ago. I've been in the same neighborhood for 47 years. I was here before I was on the city council. I was here after I'm on the city council. I was here before radio. I'm going to be here after radio. I told my house paid for. I'm not going any place. Whatever around me that needs to be changed has to leave. And that's how we do it on Bond Drive and Pickford and Gibbon Road and Amal Heights. That's just how we have to do it. I want to make sure that we also celebrate, as you're doing tonight, our victims. Dr. King, in his latter days, began to look back and say, I don't know if the movement that we initiated is really the answer. In fact, Dr. King in 1967-68 said, we may have integrated into a burning house. Because what he understood was, it didn't matter if you could go and eat at the lunch counter if you didn't have money to buy the food. It didn't matter what toilet you were able to sit on. It wasn't about that. At the end of the day, it was about economic justice. If you want to know real terrorism, you want to know what that looks like, be out here and be hungry with nothing to eat. Bulldozing over the homeless people's homes where they stayed, the tents that they call home. Now, I know some of y'all say that's real nice because we really got tired of seeing that. But at the end of the day, we got enough empty houses in these neighborhoods. Then why should we have any homeless people? You got houses you calling code enforcement on that we could put people in. And so what are we here for? Last thing, history is best qualified to reward all research. Right here on this historic street that we call Metropolitan, but really it's what? Stewart Avenue. Now, I ain't going to ask y'all who Stewart was because we have to really get into a history lesson. It should have never been Stewart anyway. But Dr. King tells the story of, he would travel all the time, and I just heard Martin III tell this as I was driving in. He said, we would pass by this place that you could see off 75, called what? Funtown. Funtown is that piece of property that Senator Ford helped get for Atlanta Metropolitan College. That big parking lot that you get to, that used to be an amusement park for those who hadn't been around. 1950s, 1960s, that was called Funtown. You could see the remnants. When I was a young lad, I would sneak over to Funtown. It had already closed, but all of the big dinosaurs and the rides, they just looked like they just shut the lights off and left all that stuff there. So as a 6 or 7, 8-year-old, I would run over there and meander through the woods. But he talked about how he would have to tell his oldest daughter, Yogi or Yolanda, that no, you can't go to Funtown. He talks about it being the most difficult conversation he ever had to have because then they wouldn't let little black boys and little black girls go to Funtown. It was for whites only. And he said he had to tell his daughter, and he saw the clouds of doubt come into her little hopeful world, but he had to remind her, but baby, there will come a day that you can go to Funtown. He said, and I want you to know that even though you can't go, you're just as good as any child that goes. And he talked about that being one of the most difficult conversations that he ever had to have. We've come a long ways. We've come now where we can have black and white working together in communities. We've come a long ways. We've come a long ways when we can see a brother who reminds us of ourselves elected to the highest office in the land. We've come to 40 years of mayors in this city. We've come to where even a soul sister that happens to be white, Nan Orrock, can represent a majority black district, and we still get served. We've come a long ways. But I leave you with this. We got a long ways to go. I don't want us to ever confuse the promised land with the promised moment. We looked and we celebrated a president who was elected, who was a melanated woolly-haired brother. I told him from a pulpit on Sunday when he spoke at Morehouse, that's the promised moment. That's not the promised land. Because less than a quarter mile from where he was speaking at the commencement of Morehouse, a whole family of those who have been lost and left out and despised and rejected was living under a bridge. They didn't know that he came through as his motorcade came through. That's the promised moment. It's not the promised land. The promised land we'll get to as we continue to work and to perfect a more perfect union. The promised land we get to as communities when we demand the kind of security in our communities that they get on the other side of town. The promised land we get to is when you can walk in your street without fear. And when you can go in your neighborhood and you want for your neighbor that what you want for yourself. So we have some work to do. Don't get weary in well-doing. Know that you are the most important part of the ingredient. You're the most important cog in the wheel. If community folks sit down, if you sit down on the job, then there's nobody to hold the elected official accountable. We as a former elected official, we good at rhetoric. We short on delivery. You've got to demand. You get the kind of government that you demand. So don't stand up on Metropolitan and ask for a development plan. You start telling them you better get one ready or else. Every now and then you just have to straighten up your collar and your back and talk in that. Did anybody see the game last night? I want you to go and practice your, what's brother name? Sherman. We're somebody on the south side of town. We're not trying to be like Buckhead. We want Buckhead to be like us. We're somebody. We want houses that look like what we are trying to ascribe to. I told people when we did Pryor Road, and I'm done, when we did the redevelopment of Pryor Road, many of y'all don't know, I can be honest now because I'm out of office, right? In District 12, that was the only thing I worked on for the last 3 years. Nobody else. Don't say that, y'all know better. But that was, I said, if I can't fix up around my own door, that's $750 million of investment. $750 million from University Avenue to Fair Drive. Brand new school, redeveloped elementary school, Park Place South, 3 senior citizen development, now a 4th one right behind my house that just got built, sidewalks, street lights. That's $375 million. $750 million, $750 million. And it didn't happen by osmosis. There were a lot of people pushing, pulling, and shoving. And here's the other thing. Some of those old ladies that I started community activism with when I was 16, when they were going to cut the 42 Village bus off, and the lady behind me who was 80 years old who would go to clean up houses in Buckhead said, how am I going to get to my babies? How am I going to help raise the babies? I can't walk a quarter of a mile to Pryor and the mall. I can't walk that far. I can make it half a block up the hill. And she decided to go down to the studios. The Arc of the Moral Universe is long, but it bends toward justice. We ended up sitting in. I was just going, before I went to North Fulton, just help her up the stairs because I knew she couldn't make it. And I ended up at 16 sitting in at the MARTA office, and she said on the ground. I said, Lord, how this old lady gonna get up first? And what is she sitting down for? But when she sat down, she said, I'm not leaving until the chairman of MARTA come talk to us. I want you to know that the 42 Village bus, it runs to 2 o'clock in the morning, and it starts back up at 5 o'clock. It only loses 3 hours worth of service, and my bedroom window is right by it. She understood that she sit down in order that others may rise. She's long been gone from the community. Sometimes you will plant seeds that you will not be the beneficiary of, but you are planting for generations yet unborn, so that Adair Park and all of these great communities that surround it, and West End, all of these great neighborhoods will return and be as great as they were intended to be. God bless you and God keep you. I got to leave because I got another appointment to make, another meeting. But thank you for celebrating yourselves. Give yourselves a big round of applause for what you have done, what you're willing to do, and the commitment you make to communities and for generations yet unborn. Thank you all so much for having me.